Conference calls for the GDC to urgently reduce its ARF for dentists and dental care professionals and allocate use of reserve funds to meet any adverse financial demand if need be. By definition, reserve funds are set aside by an individual business to meet any future costs or financial obligations, especially those arising unexpectedly. If the current COVID-19 pandemic doesn't count as an unexpected financial obligation, what does? Thank you.
Thank you. Now then, just waiting for anybody to put their hands up if they wish to speak to this.
No hands up here.
No.
Anybody wanting to respond?
Ah, there we are. Yes, Mick Armstrong, PEC Chair. Mick, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm just not quite clear what the implications of this is. Are you looking for a reduction in the ARF, and for how long? Which will probably mean a consequent rise in the ARF at a later date. I think the reserves policy of the GDC we keep under scrutiny. They have various obligations to meet with regard to public bodies, or even though it's not a public body. So we do scrutinise it. I'm just not sure what the implications of the motion are.
Thank you. Well, as you're actually asking a question about what's behind that, Amar, would you care to respond to that?
Hi, the implication, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
The implication is that even if the reserve funds needed to be re-reserved at a later point in time, that could be done without the initial burden to, for example, DCPs, that many of which could have been in the furlough scheme right now, asked to pay for their ARF in July, which it could have been deferred to a later point in time when they're not furloughed, for example.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? For, against, or to? Your hand's gone back up, Amar. You want to say something else?
No.
Nope, in that case, I think Benel will move to the vote, please.
Fantastic, thank you.
So,
Okay. I think all votes are in and that motion has been carried.
thank you.
These difficult times, one of the surprises has been the support companies and banks have given customers. Perhaps led by a chancellor with a magic money tree more bounteous than Jeremy Corbyn could ever have imagined, we find banks offering mortgage holidays, finance companies offering deferred payments, and landlords reducing rents to assist worried tenants. NHS England has been generous in support of its NHS dentists, but of course private dentistry at least matches in fiscal terms the value of NHS dentistry and has been severely hit with no financial support available to the sector. It would be reasonable to have expected that our regulator, mindful of the financial and clinical challenges the profession faced, would be proactive and offer a suspension of the annual retention fee during the period of COVID response. If such empathy and generosity were a step too far, perhaps the option to pay by instalments. But no, allegedly their response was to furlough staff whilst retaining 100% of the income stream, whilst being backed by £30 million of general reserves, an increase of £10 million on 2018. With an operating surplus of £14 million in 2019, perhaps a small gesture of deferring ARF for a couple of months would have been affordable and demonstrated an empathy for the profession a cost which could presumably have easily been covered due to reduced overheads. The GDC has made considerable progress in recent years. Hearings have reduced, and there have been levels of engagement which were sadly lacking in previous times. But it is now time to demonstrate with actions some of the intention often spoken about, to demonstrate understanding for the profession it regulates through a financial reimbursement for this COVID period. Further, more urgent consideration should be given to always allow payments by instalment, and more importantly, a small period of grace for those who, for a variety of reasons, fail to make their ARF payments on time. I would support a fine for late payments with a requirement to pay by the latest the 31st of January. It is not in the best interest of patients to remove from the register dentists who could easily remedy an oversight or technical malfunction and make payment plus a fine. These are stressful times. The rule book on how or even if or when to treat a patient has been thrown away. Let's hope as the fallout from COVID settles, the GDC demonstrate empathy and understanding for the difficulties all clinicians have faced, the difficult choices, the heartache of turning away patients in pain and of providing treatment under AAA that at other times would have landed them in front of a GDC hearing for inappropriate prescribing or leaving a patient without access to care. Please support this motion and call on the GDC to support the profession financially at this time with a rebate of ARF fees.
Thank you, Ian. Now, would anybody care to speak? We've got David Cotham's hand up.
Thank you, Stuart. I'd like to support this motion. Many times, well, historically, we've also asked for grace period. We've also asked for instalments. We do need to have a complete open transparency on why the level of the reserves that they have are needed and justifications, and give us a proper 5-year forward planning so that we know how much we're going to be paying in the future. So I would fully support this motion.
Thank you. Yes, and we have Lauren Harry with a hand up. Lauren, for or against?
For, thank you. Afternoon conference. I'd just like to lend my support to this as well. I think our DCP colleagues have been really particularly hard hit over this period, and you know, I really think that the GDC need to look at this again.
Thank you. Right, any more for any more? No hands coming up?
No, none.
Right, no, yeah, can we move to the vote then, please?
You're getting quicker, Stuart. Oh, I thought that was going to be unanimous.
Yeah.
Nearly there. Okay, that motion has been carried.
Thank you.
Hello Conference. In a closed session GDC meeting held on Wednesday the 13th of May 2020, it was agreed that there would be no reconsideration of the annual retention fee payment during the coronavirus pandemic. It was also agreed not to allow payment by instalments, unlike the General Medical Council, and this is considering the economic situation that the profession finds itself in. Due to this, the GDC has received its regular annual income. However, the General Dental Council has seen fit to furlough some of its staff. In effect, this means that the taxpayer is funding their employees. This job retention scheme was to help businesses whose income had been directly impacted by the coronavirus, and this is simply not the case as far as the GDC is concerned. Their income has been completely unaffected by COVID-19. I ask Conference to call for the General Dental Council to immediately withdraw from the furlough scheme and use its reserves to pay its staff properly and repay the taxpayer all the money it has taken from the scheme. Thank you, Conference.
Thank you, Adam. Right, Duncan Thomas, Northumberland LDC. The floor is yours.
Thank you. In essence, I absolutely support this motion, but I'm a little bit anxious in that what evidence do we actually have the GDC has furloughed its staff? That's a rumour I had heard as well, but if the motion is based on rumour only, then my instinct is to call for the motion to be withdrawn.
Thank you. Michael Armstrong. Come on, Mick.
Yes, I'm coming. It's not a rumour, they have furloughed staff. The numbers are absolutely tiny. So if that money was repaid, it would amount to about 40 pence per registrant for the year. So it's legal, it's what many businesses have done. It's actually probably saved registrants money so that they can actually regulate more efficiently, hopefully. So I don't see what you really want us to do with this. You could argue perhaps that the taxpayer should fund all of the regulatory functions of the GDC as it's for their benefit, and I could have a bit more sympathy with that argument.
Thank you. Now, does anybody else wish to speak? Please raise your hand now. No, nothing here. So can we move to a vote then, please? Trust everybody remembers how to this time.
Okay, Stuart, that motion was carried.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Carter, representing Gwent LDC, South Wales. I'm proposing today that Conference calls on the GDC to fulfil its duty to protect patients by actively policing direct-to-consumer dentistry. The profession raised concerns over the status of remote provision orthodontics with the GDC last year. These freely available direct orthodontic systems offer patients plastic aligners based on self-taken impressions using at-home dental moulding kits or occasionally 3D scans. The GDC has now accepted that remote orthodontic work falls within the practice of dentistry and noted reports of remote providers offering services without face-to-face patient contact with a dental registrant, a legal requirement under the Dentists Act 1984. They emphasised that for all dental interventions, this important interaction between clinician and patient should take place at the beginning of the patient consultation. They have suggested that they gather evidence on potential harm to patients. The GDC should not have needed to have this brought to their attention. This type of thing is nothing new. Various types of direct-to-consumer dentistry have existed in the UK for years in different guises prior to the current one, and our profession has been picking up the pieces and repairing the damage done to these patients who have been actively harmed by these treatments offered by companies who act with apparent immunity. It's not going away. Any brief look at social media sites such as Facebook or Instagram will show a steadily increasing push towards direct-to-consumer dentistry. There appears to be no or very low levels of patient protection. The GDC appear to have no great interest in trying to protect the patients from this unregulated area of medical work with any degree of urgency. Their current stance is to gather evidence, and I presume that that means wait for patients to be injured before acting. I would urge Conference to back this proposal, which will apply pressure to the GDC to fulfil one of their core duties, that is, to protect the public before harm occurs. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jim. Right. Do we have anybody wishing to speak for, against, or to? Russell, fire away.
Just to make aware, so the Smile Direct Club, obviously people have been aware of, and I think GDC themselves have openly named at times. But of the many providers, there was one we were just discussing with our own group today. There's one called Your Smile Direct, who were trading off that similar name. The company went into receivership in the last few weeks. The directors have opened up another company under another name. So they are playing the game of managing their losses to make maximum profit. When the patients contacted the GDC, which was Irish GDC, they were told because it was companies and not dental registrants, GDC wanted nothing to do with it at all. So the patients have just been left high and dry. They're not being supported. They are coming to harm by these companies.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Please raise your hand now. Lauren.
Sorry, unmute. Thanks again. We brought a very similar motion last year that was not passed. I really urge Conference to look at the harm that's been that's been done to patients over the past year, and pass this motion this time.
Thank you, Lauren. Eddie, would you care to address us?
Yes, thanks, Stuart. I was involved recently with a piece of work with the Mail on Sunday, where they were doing an investigation into the remote orthodontics. And one of the patients was seen at a practice in Birmingham, where previously no radiographs had been taken of the patient, and the patient had dental sepsis, or sorry, infection in several areas of the mouth, including draining sinuses and various other things that obviously were not picked up by any screening before the treatment started. This is unsafe for patients who are not dentally fit and should be stopped. And when the Mail on Sunday tried to highlight the company involved, they were threatened with being sued. So the GDC really are probably very wary about being sued themselves, and that's not an excuse on patient safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, in that case, we shall move to the vote, please, Binal.
Thank you. Okay, so I am pleased to say that motion has been carried.
Thank you.